death.
Welcome back, guys, to another Clash Royale video. Today we're taking a look at this free-to-play giant deck that I've been using on my second account here, and this deck will actually work all the way from Arena 5 up to Arena 9. Now, in case you guys haven't noticed, giants are extremely strong right now, and they are also very popular, so you can't go wrong with a giant deck. Now, I've got two replays to share with you guys today. One is against a level 10 opponent, and the other is against a Sparky user, and what I hope to show you guys is as a free-to-play player with a deck with only commons and rares, you can still beat higher level opponents, and you can still beat people with legendary cards in their deck. Let's go ahead, take a look at those replays, and then we'll finish off with a live battle. So here we are, guys, facing off against the level 10 opponent. Now, in the past, about 90% of my battles on this count were actually against level 9s, but recently, probably about 50% of my battles are actually against level 10 opponents, so not really too sure what has caused the shift in difficulty, but right here, he's coming on the right-hand side with an aggressive Barbarian Hog Rider Fire Spirit push. I'm going to go ahead and use the cannon to distract the Hog Rider, and then use the Zaspel to finish off a couple of those Barbarians as well as the Fire Spirits, and in the end, we only take one single Fire Spirit hit to my tower, which isn't too bad because I also have a better idea as to what kind of cards my opponent has in his deck. Now, I'm going to sit back here and wait to see if my opponent makes another play. He's going to go ahead and use the Minion Horde on the right hand side, so I'm going to counter with the Fire Spirits. Now, this is the reason I had the Fire Spirits in this deck, because they're a great card for winning some great elixir advantages. Now, right here, going to go ahead and do a split push with the Barbarians. He's going to go ahead and use the Fireball on the right hand side, so I know my opponent is pretty low in elixir. Gonna go ahead and go with aggressive giant push on the left hand lane. Now, as you can see, I do have the Fireball selected. In my mind, I was kind of debating, should I use that Fireball to damage the tower as well as the cannon, but I was worried that after I used the Fireball, my opponent would drop down Barbarians or something like that, so I held back, but in the end, we did some decent damage to the tower. Musketeer getting a couple shots off, bringing that tower down to 900 health, so I have a pretty strong damage lead so far in this battle, and I also have a little bit of an elixir advantage. Now, right here, I'm going to sit back a quick second and wait to see if my opponent makes the next move. And because I actually have a pretty bad hand right here with the Fire Spirits, the Goblins, the Fireball, and the Cannon, I'm going to play it safe and just use the Cannon in the middle of my base and force my opponent to go on the offensive. He's going to go ahead and use the Minion Horde, so once again the Fire Spirits going down to counter it. And even though I wasted that cannon, the cannon plus the Fire Spirits is the same elixir cost of that Minion Horde, so it wasn't a loss in any way. Barbarian's going down here, but my opponent catches me off guard with a predictive Fireball and the Zaspel, and the Hog Rider makes it to my tower, getting some decent damage done. But I also know my opponent is pretty low in elixir, so I'm going to go in with an immediate giant push on the left hand lane. Now, I've said this in the past, that when you're using a giant, there's two main ways to use it. You can either do a slow push behind your king tower, or place him down directly at the bridge. Only use him at the bridge if you know your opponent is low in elixir, or if their counter cards are out of rotation and you can catch them off guard. If you know they have a bunch of elixir, or they also have their counter cards in their hand, then go ahead and do a giant behind your tower, and that'll give you some more time to build up a bunch of elixir to get past those counter cards. And in that instance, I knew my opponent was pretty low in elixir, like I said, so I used the giant directly on the bridge. So I have the 1 crown lead. There's 17 seconds left in this battle. Giant going in there with some Barbarians in the back. Now, unfortunately, my opponent isn't going to let me have the tower on the right hand side, even though there are no chances of him coming back in this battle, so I have to settle for a 1 crown victory. Hog Rider coming in here, going to distract it with the cannon, and in the end, getting that 1 crown victory over somebody 2 levels higher. Let's go ahead to the next replay here. So here we are, facing off against that Sparky user. Now, I'm going to sit back. Normally when I'm facing a higher level opponent, I like to allow them to make the first move. He's going to start out a slow push with the Sparky on the left hand lane. I'm going to counter with a giant push on the opposite lane on the right hand side. Now, he's using a level 2 Sparky, by the way, so giant going down in the back there behind my king tower, setting up a slow push. Then I'm going to start getting ready for this defense on the left hand lane. He's probably going to drop down a giant or a royal giant in front of a Sparky. Pretty much everyone that uses a Sparky either uses one of those cards in front to protect it. So giant going down, and as soon as the Sparky crosses the bridge, gonna go ahead and use the Zaspel to reset the attack timer, and then use the Barbarians to take it out. Now, unfortunately, for some reason, the Wizard targeted the Goblins before he targeted the Barbarians, which is really unfortunate because I was relying on those Goblins to take out the Giant, and as a result, his Giant does a decent amount of damage to my tower. I managed to get my Giant to his tower, but he came out way ahead in the damage lead. My tower sitting at 600 health, his tower sitting at 1600 health. So I have a pretty big uphill battle to go later on this battle. Now he's coming up with some barbarians here. Gonna go ahead and use that fireball, take him out pretty easy. Now when you're using the fireball, you always want the exact center of the fireball to be slightly in front of the barbarians, and that way it pushes them all away from your tower. If you use the fireball in the center of all the barbarians, it actually pushes a couple of the barbs closer to your tower. And right here, just sitting back waiting to see if my opponent does another Sparky push, but in the end I sit at 10 elixir for too long, so I go in on the right hand side with a giant goblin push. Now he starts out with another Sparky push on the left hand lane, but the great thing with doing a counter push against a Sparky user is you force them to spend all of their elixir defending the tower, and that way when the Sparky actually crosses the bridge, it's a lot easier to counter because it's by itself and it doesn't have any support troops behind it or a tank in front of it. So right here, Sparky crossing the bridge, gonna go ahead and do a surround technique with the barbarians to take it out. Now if you take a look at my hand, I also had the zap spell available, so I could have went ahead and zapped it to reset the attack timer and then drop the barbarians, and that would have been a much safer way to take out the Sparky. But I wanted to save myself the 2 elixir because if I did this surround technique perfectly, I wouldn't need the zap spell. Now putting on some counter pressure here on the right hand side, trying to go for that 3 crown victory, but unfortunately my opponent has the Inferno Tower, which is a strong counter to the Giant, and unfortunately my zap spell is a half second too late. The Giant is already dead, so kind of a waste of 2 elixir right there. His Giant crossing the bridge on the left hand side with the Wizard in the back for support. Now I'm going to do something pretty crazy here and actually ignore the push on the left hand lane and just try and go for that 3 crown victory. Giant going up there, he drops on some barbarians, but my Fire Spirit's doing work for them, and the Giant is finishing off his King Tower, giving me that 3 crown victory. Let's go ahead here and do a live battle. So here we are, guys. Hopefully we get a decent opponent. Level 9, not too bad considering how many level 10s I've been facing recently. Give them the all good luck. Now, if you want to use this deck with different cards, the Poison Spell will be a good substitution for the Fireball. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. And maybe I should have used that Giant closer to the bridge to put some more immediate pressure on and force him to spend more elixir, because now he's just going to use that Giant in front and force me to spend my elixir defending. Maybe not. I should be able to do this here with a little bit of a zappy right here. Zap this with this. And then I wish I had enough elixir for my Fire Spirits there, but I'm going to sit back a little bit and hopefully put on some counter pressure. Let's use some Goblins though. Hopefully save this Musketeer a little bit of damage. And should be able to go back and do some damage. Those Barbarians though on the left hand side, that's one of the reasons why I love the Barbarians, is they're really strong at doing counter pushes. Now can we use a Fire Spirits here to kill these minions? There we go. Now, as I was saying, you can use the Poison Spell instead of the Fireball. If you have it, it's probably a better alternative. Let's go ahead and do a push on the right-hand side. And then if you want to get rid of the Barbarians, a Mini P.E.K.K.A might be a good substitution. And the Fire Spirits are kind of a wild card, because you can really replace anything with the Fire Spirits, like an Elixir Pump, a Princess, or an Ice Wizard, depending on what you have. Let's zap this, maybe. There we go. Get a couple shots there on the left-hand side. And then we're going to do the surround technique with the Goblins here. There we go. And then we're going to fireball all these guys right here. Please don't place down a Giant. There we go. And we're going to have to do a surround with these Barbarians right here. Hopefully I get it perfectly. There we go. We should be able to take out that Sparky. There we go, guys. That's why I love having the Barbarians in my deck. Is before, when I didn't have the Barbarians, the Sparky would give me trouble. Because if you didn't have that Zap spell available, it's just really hard to counter that Sparky. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and zap that Sparky and then use a minion or Goblins there. Actually, let's zap it, Fireball it, and then Goblins it. And unfortunately, he's going to get, actually, no hits off, so that's not too bad. Let's start doing a push here on the left-hand side with a Giant. I'm expecting, ooh, thankfully he just uses Barbarians. So we can do some Fire Spirit action right here. Zap these guys right there. Then Barbs in the back to take out this Wizard. There we go. So as I was saying, this is just kind of the bare bones of a free-to-play Giant deck. And you can make some substitutions depending on what you like to use. If you have an Ice Wizard or a Princess, go ahead and switch out the Fire Spirits. If you have a Poison Spell at a decent level, go ahead and switch that out instead of the Fireball. But we are going to get the 1 crown victory. Anyways, guys, that's going to be the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.